Okay, this is Bob Maninger. He joined the crew 3 years ago for a little part-time before he had his full-time job kicking in. But he's been a builder of sorts over the years and is now a board member of the Phoenix Commotion. And so he is no stranger to building with recycled materials. Tell us how you feel about that.
Well, it's a great cause. I love the idea of reclaimed material and recycled material, but I like the way you do it the best because you use material that's available to you. It's available to lots of people if they would look for it. But you can build almost anything out of just what you have laying around on a job site, and that's part of what I dig the most about what we're doing here. It's above and beyond the water catchment systems and the hot water heaters that don't come with a tank and those kinds of things. It's about building the whole house. It's the entirety of the project. So that's what I really have enjoyed the most about the projects that you put together.
How do you feel about this as a model for little families that don't have a house?
Well, you talk about often enough whenever you're speaking about the alternative between this kind of building and mobile homes or Section 8 housing, and when you can put a family into a home, into a house, and you have a lot of possibilities now. They call that their home, and they can bring friends in and cook dinner and have gatherings and do all kinds of family things that they wouldn't necessarily always be comfortable doing in other settings. And so that's a great charge. When you can put a family, particularly a low socioeconomic status type family that maybe single parent with 2 or 3 kids, into a house instead of into an apartment, they've really done something. And when you can do that for as little money as Dan proctors for the deal, their house payment becomes less than probably what they're paying for a used car that they're driving around. So it's kind of a no-brainer. We just have to get the word out.
How do you feel about taking folks that are raw on your crew and getting them to build a house?
I think that's one of the genius things that I really latched onto, because weren't we all at one time or another, right?
Yes.
I mean,
I still am.
No, some days it still rears its ugly head, but we all were, and in whatever our jobs are. I've got, as you do, I've got lots of fancy degrees and a big fancy job over at the university, but even there, oftentimes I run into something new that I haven't ever done before. That's just part of being human, I think. And if you bring a group together, a crew, and you don't run a 20-person crew, you run a 3 or 4-person crew most of the time, sometimes less. If you bring a small group together that haven't ever done anything like this before, that's not that big a challenge if they're willing to learn. And if they just have a little bit of oomph, just a little bit of fire, they're going to catch on to these things. This is not rocket science. This is not the most intellectual thing you've ever done as far as just building the house. Now, I tell you all the time that you're more than a builder. I think you're more of an artist than you are a builder. You probably want to be a builder rather than an artist, but you're not. The creations that you make are the genius in them is the artistic bounty. But nevertheless, just the pure building side of this, anybody can do it, right? If I can do it, if I can succeed, anybody can do this, right? And it's true. It's true. Anybody can do it. I think when I first met you, part of the genius to me was that at the time you were running college kids. College kids were on your crew at that time. And I thought, man, what a great service to the community and to the greater good of humanity. You've got these kids that are over there majoring in sociology that are probably going to be, something wonderful one day, or, English majors that are going to do great things. But in the meantime, they're learning a trade. They're learning how to build their own house one day, and that's great genius.
Where does this lead in the culture?
Well, it has a lot of directions that it can go. What I think it does for us, if we look at it intellectually, it takes us to some finite possibilities. It could be that our water supply is finite. It could be that our landfill space is finite. So when you look at those things as a culture, you have to start making some kind of a plan. Dan has a plan.
I got you fooled.
And it'll work. We just got to get people to recognize and jump on board. And there's a ton of statistics and as you're capable of doing so often, there's a deep reservoir of philosophical points at which we turned to do something else that didn't benefit our culture. And on we can go with why you shouldn't pour water on a lawn growing a grass that's not for the climate that you live in. Mining phosphate so that you can fertilize it. And on we go in a culture where we want to look as impressive and as pretty as them. And, it happens that them is a castle, a 12,000 square foot house that none of us would ever even dream to live in or care to. What we need to be is a little bit more of ourselves and a little bit less precious. Maybe we should grow gardens instead of lawns. And the effect on our culture would be more what our grandparents knew. And not what we have been sold as an idea of how we should live, but more how we can live and how we can live within our means and productively.
Pretty much says it all. Is that good?